Fam, I can tell you without any iota of doubt that the period between which my son's school told me that social services were going to contact me and the time they eventually contacted me was such a long, pensive, tiring period of time for me. Guys, if you know any African mom planning to relocate to the UK or that has just recently relocated, you need to call them to sit down on this video and listen, to my experience with social services, how I got into trouble with them and how we can do things better going forward. Welcome back to my YouTube channel. My name is the Olajumoke Bola. If this is your first time on my channel, I want to say a warm welcome to you. If this is not your first time, you've liked, you've shared, you've subscribed, you've told your friends to subscribe, you smashed the notification button, guys, you're the real deal, and I want to say thank you. Today on my YouTube channel, I want to talk to you about how I got into trouble with social services. I remember before we relocated, the conversation about not having to spank the kids, were kind of hush-hush. I can also say that at some point they got to know or hear it from maybe a conversation with people who I couldn't, tell to hush at that time because the kids were within the vicinity. Somehow, I would say they had the idea that they were not meant to be spanked. When we moved to the UK, it was illegal, to spank a child. How did this affect my kids and our relationship and the usual African way of correcting them or, not sparing the rod when it is necessary? And I can also tell you that before we relocated, I had started to, months before, practice gentle parenting, which is not the style that I'm used to or that I was raised with, but I had started to try to practice it and see how will this work. You're not used to telling them things, go get it done, and then all of a sudden you expect, to just walk into, oh, go get it fixed, go do this. It has not been like that, so it's difficult for it to start all of a sudden. However, I did put in some effort to see to it that I started to practice it, gentle parenting. That's what's called, right? African moms, you need to grab a seat. African dads, you are not excluded in this matter. So we moved in and the excitement and everything was understandable with the kids, misbehaviors here and there, and then the gentle parenting that I've been practicing, came into play at this point, and it was going good, for some time, until I realized this video is actually about my son, until I realized that he was being naughty at some point, and there was some level of naughtiness that could not escape the rod. In this sense, there was actually no rod, but there was spanking like we usually do, So I got to his school on this fateful day to pick him up, him and his sister, and then my older daughter was the one who usually, she's the one who usually picks them because their teachers are with them waiting outside for their parents or for their relatives or someone who they are familiar with to pick them. And so on this fateful day, I got to the parking lot, seated in the car, waiting for them to come meet me in the car. And then my older daughter comes to me to say, Mom, the teacher wants to see you. I'm like, which teacher? What for? I'm not even dressed to come out of the car because I usually don't anyway. So what is it they want to talk about that they couldn't have said over the phone or, email, because these people can bug your life with emails. Gosh. Anyways, I tried to just brush up and look nice and all of that, just to go meet the teacher, whoever it was that wanted to see me for whatever reason I didn't know about. And then I got there and she said, oh, can you come in with me for just about 2 minutes? I'm like, come in with you. It's not even something we can even say outside, like we have to. And then on our way to our office, I saw that she was, when she got to the door, I saw that she was shutting the door. I'm like, is it a serious confidential matter? What exactly is going on? What has happened with any of my kids? You know, because I've got two of them in that particular school. So she shut the door and I'm like, okay. And then she started with, oh, she's the deputy head of school. She told me her name and this, that. And then she brought out a book. I'm like, okay. And she said, so we had this conversation today, and Brian, that's what my son bears here. Brian talked about being spanked. I'm like, ha. And then she went further. Apparently, while they were having this conversation with my son, they wrote down everything that he said in his precise and exact words. And so she was literally reading out what he said to me, that they had a group meeting and he said, you know, that he was being spanked at home, that back in our own country, Nigeria, he was spanked with rods, you know, stuff like that, you know, but here he's being spanked. And they asked by who. He said by my mom and sometimes by my dad when I do what I'm not supposed to do. I was just swallowing my spit, like, so what? I can't deny the fact that I spank him. He needs to be spanked or corrected, you know. So and then she went on and on to say that in the UK it is illegal to spank a child, this, that, you know. And then we went on and on to talk about Brian and his school, how I feel that he's finding it a bit difficult adjusting to the new life. The kind of plays he would, you know, play back home in Nigeria is termed as being rough here. They don't play that kind of way. They don't roll in some certain kind of ways that he is used to, you know. And I understand all of those changes, and I'm not being hard on him, you know, getting through this stage of changes with him. For example, my daughter is a complete reporter. She tells me everything that goes on in school. They are just a class apart, so she literally knows almost everything that happens with him. Or maybe if a teacher corrected him in school. For example, you know, my daughter told me that, Mommy, during assembly, you know, Pemisire was Brian. A teacher corrected him. And then I asked, whatever for, what happened? And then I called my son to say, what happened? Why did the teacher have to correct you on assembly today? And he said, Mommy, they were singing and I was just enjoying the song. And I was moving my body like I was dancing. I'm like, but you're not supposed to dance on assembly. Do you see any other person dancing on assembly? Not like you even know how to dance, for heaven's sake. But, you know, that's not even the point. Did you see anyone else dancing on assembly? And a teacher had to call you out to correct you, to say, stay still or something. And when the boy told me that he was just enjoying the song, I'm like, it's you people that said they should be free. Now the boy is enjoying music and is moving his body. Anyway, I just let it slide. But I just told him, whatever others are doing is how you are supposed to comport yourself and behave. If you don't see, if you're not told to dance, or you don't see others dancing, why should you, you know, start to dance? And, you know, reports like that I get from the sister, and then I go to talk to him about it, correct him, and let him know things are not done, you know, like that here, things are a bit different, and all of those kind of talks. There was also another situation that I went to pick him myself this particular time, and he came crying to me, and I'm like, very unusual. And I asked him what was the matter and all, and then he busted into tears. I couldn't make any sense of what he was saying, and I saw his teacher, you know, right just across, and then I walked up to him to ask why. He was trying to explain something, but I couldn't understand what he was talking about. And the teacher tried to explain to me what was going on and promised to see to it. However, he now reported that Brian shoved somebody, and it was just such a kind of heated conversation between Brian and the teacher, because he wasn't agreeing that he shoved the person, but the teacher was saying he did. And I just told him to apologize and not to argue with his teacher, and that was it. So I tried to bring up all of these other talks while the deputy head of school was talking to me that, you know, he's finding it quite difficult adjusting to the new life and all like that, trying to see if I could brush aside the issue of this spank. But at the end of the day, I saw that it did look like this woman was on about the spank. And so I came back to it and said, well, yes, we do spank sometimes, not all the times, when he's extremely naughty. Like I've told you some backstories, you know, that he was being naughty. And so she said, okay, so when such things come up like that, we need to do the needful because it's a safeguarding issue. We are here to protect the children. They are our priority. And so we need to file a report to social services. And yours truly went numb. Like as it reached that level, can't we just settle this matter between us right now? But I didn't want to come out to her saying that, no, you don't need to inform anyone, because it would look more like I had something else to hide, which I didn't. You know, so I'm like, okay, is that the process? So what happens afterwards? And then she saw that I was kind of lost in thoughts, you know, trying to figure out what, you know, might come out of it. And then she was just trying to be nice to say, no, if you need anything, I can give you my number, I can give you my name, you can talk to me, this, that. I know Brian is a bit cheeky sometimes, but he's not over the top. He's just like, I know him. She was trying to tell me that she knows him, this, that. Anyway, I made my point to let her know that it was only if it was completely necessary that he gets spanked. And I can't even remember the last time he got spanked, for it to be fresh in his memory, for him to go say it in school that he got spanked. Anyway, she said they were going to file the reports, blah, blah, blah. And then social services were going to either call me or visit me, depending on their prerogative, you know. And then I threw the question straight at her. I said, okay, so what do you think based on what I've told you? She said, well, as far as she's concerned, is really kind of minimal and all. Then I said, okay then, no problem. Thank you very much. And then we got out of our office. And then I said, can I ask you a question? So we went back in again and she shut the door. And then I said, so are you trying to say that I am not allowed to spank my child? And then she faced right on her laptop and then she typed, is it illegal to spank a child in the UK? And then it came out to say it is illegal except reasonable reason or something like that. And I'm like, okay. She said, no, don't worry if you need anything. And I said, thank you. Yours truly, I left that office, called on my kids, let's go. And then I was in deep thought all through our walk to the car. And then the first thing I did was to be as calm as possible. And in the presence of the three of them, I asked my son what actually happened. I was ready not to interrupt him because I wanted to hear every little detail of all what he had to tell me. And so he said, we usually have this meeting that we're in, like 3 or 4 of us in a group, and then we are being asked questions, how we are feeling, if anything is bothering us, if we're okay. And I'm like, okay, how long have you been having this meeting? And he says it's every week, once every week. I'm like, okay, so what have you been discussing all the other times, you know, that you say has been bothering you? And then he said, sometimes it was not just so clear. And then I asked, okay, so what did other people say was bothering them? He said some of them talked about their experience on their last holiday, how maybe they didn't enjoy it, you know how it can be when these kids are talking here and there. So I now asked him, so what happened? What did you tell them in school? Then he said they asked him if there's anything that is bothering him or if anything is making him unhappy. And he said, my sisters can be super annoying and my parents spank me sometimes. And that was it within the group of 4 of them that was in that group. And he said that was it. He said, so they went on lunch break. And by the time they got back from their lunch break, a teacher called him aside to say, okay, Brian, you talked about being spanked. Can you tell me more about it? And then he went on to say, in Nigeria, we are being spanked with a stick, or with a rod, or with a cane, whatever. And but you know, my parents don't spank me with a cane, they spank me with their hands. You know, they asked him lots of questions. So is that how you are being, you know, trained back in Nigeria? And he said yes. And you know, they just asked him questions. They didn't take any notes right in his presence. Apparently, immediately they told him to leave. They decided to pen down everything that he said, and that was the note that the deputy head of school was reading out to me in his precise words, what he said. And honestly, I cannot put it against my son that he said exactly those words that were read to me. And so he said it, and then we got home, and then his sisters were listening. And then we got home, and then I sent a message to my husband, who was at work, to say, guy, we're in trouble. Social services is looking for us. You know, he didn't quite get it because he was at work. He thought they had called me, but you know, the school just said they were going to call me. Apparently, that incident happened that same day, and they had not yet filed it. They were just informing me. So I didn't know how quick or how long it would take before social services would eventually contact me. So I just kept waiting. I spoke to my brother, I spoke to my sister, you know, I spoke to them about what's my fate, what are my chances, am I in big trouble? And you know, I was just told to let them know that it's our culture, it's our way of raising our kids, to spank them. Come to think of it, even the Bible says spread the rod and spoil the child. Why wouldn't we, you know, spank when they misbehave or when they get really naughty? Even with gentle parenting, I don't know how people who give birth to their kids and they are brought from the day one, how they do it, but I'm coming from a place where we spank, where we use the rod, or where we punish if need be. Not because you are being wicked, but because you want them to get a message you're possibly trying to pass across. Or because maybe when they pass their boundaries in a really long stretch. So, African moms, the bottom line is they want to tell us how to raise these kids. I am not here to lose my children to bad manners or to bad behaviors that is being picked up, or simply because they know that they are not supposed to be spanked, you know, and so we leave them and watch them waste their lives or be who we cannot even recognize. Anyways, I started to wait day 1, day 2, week 1, week 2, waiting for this call, you know, from the social services. And I got tired of waiting. You know, every time I wake up, I've tried to rehearse what I'm going to say, you know, and how I'm going to talk in a way that shows that I'm not afraid, or I'm not scared, or I've not done anything wrong that warrants, you know, being hidden, you know, or if they were going to visit, they were going to talk to my other kids to ask if they were being maltreated or if they were being, you know, spanked all the time and all of that. I was just trying to prepare my mind. Anyways, that particular day that this incident happened, when I got home, I was in my car for hours. I couldn't get down because I was trying to contain my emotions. I was trying to think straight. What am I going to do? How do I address this? And you know, after a long time, I'm telling you, I spent over 2 hours in the car. After I brought the kids home, I didn't get down from the car. I was in deep thoughts. You know, and so I called my son again after some time, and I told him to re-narrate what happened again, like I didn't hear the first time. Re-narrate that thing. So they usually ask you every week how you are doing, what bothers you, if you are worried about something, what you're scared of. They ask you that every week. You know, the kids have been telling me other things they ask them to do or they talk about in school, like, you know, there's the day in a week that they show things, like some people can come with their medals to talk about when they got it, you know, different things. You can show a toy, you can show different things and talk about it to your classmates. But this one was really new to me, being asked how you're feeling, if something bothers you or what worries you. Okay, so I told him to narrate the story again, and he did narrate it. And then I asked him, boy, when was the last time you were spanked? And my son went, I think 3 to 4 days ago. And I'm like, really, by who? And he said, I can't remember. I'm like, so, okay, so if these people come to question you in school tomorrow and they ask you this question, when was the last time you were spanked? Is this what you're going to tell them, that you were spanked 3 to 4 days ago? And they ask you by whom, you would tell them you can't remember. Ha. And then before you know it, our conversation went deep, and then the boy started to cry. Like, I'm sorry, mommy. This is not an I'm sorry matter. This is something that you have gone to say. I am not denying it completely, but I am saying that what warranted you going to school to say it? If you didn't do anything wrong, would you have been spanked in the first place? And then we had that conversation, and then I asked him, so if they come to ask you again in school, what are you going to say? And the first thing my son said was, I'm going to tell them my parents mean no harm. It's because I was naughty and they just spank me once in a while. Okay, where are you being spanked? What part of your body are you being spanked? My bum. The social services called me. I was right in the kitchen, and then my phone rang, and I saw that it's a UK number that I'm not familiar with, and my kids were in the house. So I just walked out of the place, to have that conversation. And hello, my name is Lisa from social services. We got a complaint from Brian that he's been spanked, at home. And I'm like, okay, yes, I'm aware. And she's like, okay, so this is like coming like a warning, because if he goes to school to talk about being spanked, you will keep getting calls and visits from us. Do you need help with him? If you need any kind of help with him, you can let us know. And she went on and on. Guys, I cannot even tell you that this was the way I was talking, because my heart was in my mouth. Trying to say the right things, trying not to appear as being afraid or my voice shaky. But I can tell you that I was really shaky. And she kept saying that there are ways to correct children, not necessarily spanking. And from that conversation, it looked more like she was trying to tell me, even if you spank him, he must not go to school to say it, because if he goes to school to say it, you're going to keep getting calls and possibly visits from us. And she asked if I needed any help with him. In my mind, I didn't know what kind of help she was talking about, but I sort of said, okay. And she said, if you think you need any help, you can contact the school and then they will contact us. I'm like, what kind of help possibly could you be talking about? Anyway, I didn't understand, and I just said, okay, no problem. And she gave me that firm warning, and we said our goodbyes. Thank you. And that was it. The degree to which this could have gone would have been if he was spanked to the point, or beaten to the point where he had a mark on his body. For example, spanked on the head, or spanked in places where marks could show. That's where it becomes a really, really serious issue. But when you spank on the bum or behind their feet or legs or whatever, then it's still considered as being reasonable, so long as it brings no harm to them. How do we balance this? Two things I want to tell you about this situation was, number one, I didn't let my children see that I was afraid. I didn't let them think that because of what has happened, they are completely free of being spanked, or they could just misbehave and go scot-free with it because social services was going to come. I also made it clear to them, if anyone misbehaves and social services comes for you, goodbye, good luck. You are the one who is going to bear the brunt of it. You would not like it. And the steps I'm taking towards, this is watching movies with them that shows how the lives of children being taken by social services end up. I've heard so many stories, I've read so many, I've watched a few, saying that young girls of about 13, 14 being taken because their parents seemingly was, inflicting or maltreating them, goes to social services and gets pregnant, gets into drugs, things that would not have happened if they were right under your roof, because you're simply correcting them. I really want us to learn from this, that this is not to say that you cannot correct your child or you cannot spank your child. It must be reasonable without any marks. And I know those who have given their kids marks and they are in deep trouble as it is. The part of them asking, putting words in their mouth, what is making you, what worries you, what is making, is that supposed to be part of care? I understand that some parents can be abusive, but we are Africans raised in this way. In fact, the lady who called me from social services even told me, we understand that is your culture, but here things are done differently. Okay, we are in a new place. We will adjust. At the same time, we cannot completely eradicate what is our culture. So, raising the kids here is with open eyes, is with a lot of patience, is with a spice of gentle parenting, but we're not throwing away where the rod needs to come in. Now, I'm not saying a rod like go and carry a stick, because if you carry a stick, that's how they will carry you. So, but that's not it, right? So that was my experience with social services, and I am making it a point of duty that every week now, before my kids go to school, we talk about this and say, don't go to school to say what you shouldn't even say, not only to your teachers, but even to your friends. Because your friends can go tell your teacher on your behalf, even if you didn't send them. And making them understand that what you want for them is for them to be better behaved, to be good and great, to come out well. It's for their own good. No parent will light a fire and tell their child or children to put their feet in it. So ultimately, they are getting to understand that it's for their ultimate good, for them to turn out right at the end of the day, and so that our efforts and our labors over them don't go in vain. Because we are in a different place doesn't mean that life has to be completely out of line to what we're used to. We just have to do it in a better way. So if you know anyone coming, tell them it's not the basbos that you used to do, or the one you carry slippers and hit it on. Things are different now. Anyways, guys, thank you so much for being a part of this video. And if this is your first time, please like, share, subscribe. If this is not your first time, thank you for coming again, and I hope to see you in my next video. Bye for now.